Hi class, welcome to our last instruction video for our final assignment of reflection on critical thinking for week 5. So this assignment is focused on reflecting back on what we've learned over the 5 weeks. Like the previous assignments, the goal of this assignment is to ensure that students understand the objectives for week 5. The week 5 objectives include reflecting on lessons that we have learned over the last 5 weeks and considering how they can be applied to our everyday life. Whether that be personal or professional, what are ways that you can incorporate some of the concepts that you've learned about critical thinking into your life? In addition, students are to also develop strategies for using critical thinking in the future. So you want these strategies to be specific ways that you can apply the skills. It's one thing to say that I'm going to practice critical thinking, but what does that really look like in your day-to-day life? What things will you specifically be doing to practice those skills? This assignment just has 2 steps and they're fairly straightforward, but I'm going to go over them here. The first step is to answer a question using your critical thinking skills. There are 3 different questions that you can choose from and choose whichever interests you most. There isn't one over the other that you need to pick. The idea is to reflect on how you would answer this question differently now. For example, one of the questions is, will receiving a college degree improve your career opportunities? Potentially at the beginning of this course, you might have had an answer on that, and that answer could have been based on personal experience or your feelings or different thoughts. The idea here is to answer that question now using critical thinking. What are some of the concepts from weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 that you can apply to answer that question now, but potentially more in depth than you would have when the course began? So what you want to do is select one of those, not all 3, just one, and then answer the question using at least 75 words. So the 75 is a minimum. If you go over, that's okay. You want to make sure you stay on topic, but it's okay to go over that 75 word count. Answer that question and consider what things would you want to include to support your answer. Do you need to consider potential barriers to your own thinking? Do you have a bias or emotions connected that potentially impact your answer? Did you do research? If you did do research, what did you find about the message? What did you find about the messenger? Potentially looking at problem solving. How could you apply problem solving in answering one of these 3 questions? So again, select just one, but you want to make sure that you answer that question and that you answer it not just based on what your opinion is, but that you answer it using critical thinking. And then the final step is to reflect and use at least 100 to 300 words looking back on how you use critical thinking to answer that question. So step 1 was to answer the question using critical thinking, and now in step 2 you're going to tell me how you applied what we learned. And to get started with that, we've provided you with 3 different questions that you can answer within that paragraph when you're reflecting back on how did I apply critical thinking. You can look back and apply these 3 questions. Also, it's asking you to how you can apply critical thinking in other areas. So now that you've answered the question and applied it here, how might you be able to use that in your future career or your current career or your very next class? So you want to be sure to answer all 3 of these questions. And then the final question there is, what steps can you take? Remember to be specific. You can say, I'll practice critical thinking in the future, and that's important, but what are the things you're going to do to practice? Give yourself specific goals with time frames and steps that you're going to take. Are you going to question others? Are you going to seek out material on the other sides of issues? So remember to be specific in that final answer. Like the previous papers, formatting is important. Papers should be in APA format. This is our final assignment. This is going to be throughout all your courses at the University of Phoenix, so you want to get a hang of it here. Brief introduction and brief conclusion. This just makes your paper complete. Citations must be included in this paper. Remember that cites aren't just for direct quotes, but also paraphrased information. Any questions that you might still have on this, don't hesitate to reach out to me and ask. Like the previous assignments, it's always good to look at the grading rubric to make sure you've covered everything. Spell check, proofread, save as a Microsoft Word document, and then submit the paper as an attachment. Let me know if you have any questions. And this is the last one. You've made it through the 5 weeks. Hopefully, this reflection has allowed you to see how much you've grown as thinkers. Congratulations and good luck on this. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks so much.